Hi, I'm Jennifer, and stability is fragile, and it's something that we shouldn't take for granted. But as Americans, we generally do because we don't know what we don't know. In the 1970s, I was in Brazil, and it was in the middle of their military dictatorship, which lasted, I think, about 25 years. I was there about halfway through. And I didn't know generally what was going on until little signs started to happen. Like when I was going to school, people would kind of pull me aside and they'd like whisper, "Is it true if we had peanut dolls of our president?" Now, this shows how long ago it was. That was Jimmy Carter. And yes, he was not very popular. And there were peanut dolls, there were peanut puppets, I think there were peanut t-shirts, everything, because he was a peanut farmer. So lots of caricatures of him as a peanut, which we kind of took for granted. But down in Brazil, they were afraid to talk about it loudly. And I thought, okay, that seems a little strange. Later on, I went on vacation for a few weeks, and my friend had a sister who was in college, and all their friends were in college, and they started talking about, people that they knew that had been disappeared. Like the military police would come during the night, they would take people, they would torture them and then release them. Or sometimes they would take them and those people were never seen again. Later on, people discovered that they had been exiled, but some were killed. And no one could talk about it. It was obviously censored, and there was a lot of censorship in newspapers and television and radio, and even in songs that were produced. It was just like a big, pressure, I guess, on the whole society, because if you talked, you might end up getting disappeared. So this was only one sign of what was going on. Another thing was inflation, and I was kind of aware of that. I was 15 and 16 years old, so I turned 16 when I lived there, and I wasn't aware of everything. But I do remember the inflation. When I arrived, it was around 50%. By the end of the year that I was there, it had gone up to about 80%. And that's pretty much as if the inflation that we've experienced from 2019 all happened within 1 year. And I don't know how I would live through something like that myself. You would want to protest on the streets, but you weren't allowed to down there. The next thing that I was aware of, and this was actually just after I left, was the family that I stayed with. They had a grocery store, and things were so out of control at that time that the government tried to issue a price freeze. Stores had to sell at the government price, and that they had no choice. And they sent the military police out to make sure that the stores complied. But that doesn't make any sense, right? Because those stores would have to restock, and they wouldn't have the money to be able to buy again to fill their shelves anymore. So the family that I know did end up closing their grocery store. So when we're talking about inflation, and of course we've been experiencing some here in the United States these last few years, and it's worldwide, everyone else is too. But what happens with some countries when their inflation gets out of hand, what they do, their currency is devalued, right? That's the opposite side of that. Well, when it gets too devalued, they just go ahead and switch to a new currency, which I wasn't that aware of, but I know that happens in quite a few countries, more than I had personally realized. And it just makes us grateful here that, we've had the dollar for over 200 years. We've had it since the beginning. And that just shows that that is stability that we have that others don't, and that they have trouble comprehending and we have trouble comprehending what's happened to them. So this all came to mind when I was talking to a friend that I'd met who has just purchased a house in Europe. Actually, she's lived there like 2 years or so. So she sold her house in the US, she bought her house in Europe, and she, I'm very happy for her. She seems very happy. She's settled in. But, you don't want to be negative. I kind of pride myself on being positive, but also being positive means being aware. And with all the changes in governments that there has been, like just in Europe in the last 100 years, right? With World War I, World War II, changes in borders, things being divvied up. Nothing is as stable as we like to think, and it's good to have a plan B. So if we are going to want to have a house in Europe or travel the world, just be aware of what can happen with our money, with our property. Like my mother-in-law, she was, after World War II, she had to sneak out of the country with a suitcase, and that's all she had. And she had to get across borders to get to somewhere safe. These things happen. They happen, and Americans think that they can't happen to us, which is pretty much true. But when we're out there traveling, or if we make friends from overseas, we should all be aware that that's how things change in the world, politically and economically. So thank you for listening, and I hope this is being received in the spirit that I'm sharing it with you, that I just hope that everyone has a little bit more awareness of, what can happen, and that we all just have a plan B. It never hurts to have a plan B. It's always good to have some type of like a safety account. And please share it with the people in your life that are younger, who've lived through, the last couple 10, 15 years of stability. They don't really understand what can happen in the world. And if they take off for, a world trip, they should have an idea of how things can change, and they can change quickly. So I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And thank you again for being here. And I hope you found it useful. All right. Take care and stay positive. Bye-bye.